Hey everyone. So in my last video I did kind of just a real quick general overview of my system and walked through a kind of a standard render, showed you generating a prompt using my ChatGPT setup. And what I wanted to do in this one is do a little more in-depth of my workflow, and this will be one that I'll probably share on the Discord and see if anybody's interested in it, in getting the results that I get. So what I want to do in this video is I'm going to go through doing a prompt generation. We're gonna come up with a new prompt, and we're going to generate the image or series of images until we get the one we want. I don't think this is going to be a super short video. I don't think it'll be super long either, but I want to make sure I go into enough detail and talk about what's going on in my head when I do this, because there is a lot of things that go on, a lot of nuance that goes on in getting the AI to do certain things. So I'm kind of, this isn't really what's the word I'm looking for. This is not going to be scripted. This is not going to be too organized. So I hope you forgive me for that, and we'll move forward with this. So I'm going to clear this out. Yes, we did this in the last video. It's a great image. We could upscale this one, but portraits are a good way to test out the upscale process. But there's two different types of images I want to do to show the different kinds of upscaling and how they work. We're going to do a portrait, but we're also going to do something mechanical, maybe futuristic, I don't know, something that will show off the intricacies of the mechanical. But we're also going to do something that is probably a little more atmospheric, a little more ethereal, that has some gradients to it, because sometimes these upscalers have a hard time with that and you end up getting this checkerboard effect, and there are techniques to get around that. So let's start off. I'm going to go into my Stable Diffusion prompt generator here, and I want to see, let's start off with the portrait. We're going to do a different portrait. We're going to do a let's see, high quality portrait of a let's do this shaman. Where is he? He is in a mythical forest with large trees, sitting next to a large campfire, comma, the scene should translate ancient. Let's try that again. Invoke a sense of ancient and old, and should be very detailed. Make it atmospheric. And ethereal. Try that again. ChatGPT doing their thing. So let's come back up here, grab that, put that in. Oh crap, did it not copy it? Did not. Great. We're going to start from scratch. Portrait of an old shaman in the mountains, sitting at a campfire with a large flames. In the middle of a large forest. The whole scene should evoke a sense of old and ancient, with a sense of mysticism and atmospheric effect. All right, let's get this moving here. So we're just going to generate one prompt from this. see if the copy worked on this one. Control C has been acting kind of funny. Looks like it worked. Let's see, smoke. Yeah, okay. All right, so negative prompt. I'm going to pull that out. We're just going to do lighting, prime, portraits, and let's do nature and fantasy. All right, so I think I'm going to keep, we're going to switch this over to that. We're going to do the 16 by 9. Where is that? 9 by 16. There we go. That works, as long as this is the ratio that we're looking for. And then I want to see a couple different variations. We're going to do 4 variations of this. We're going to leave that. Restore faces. So steps, we're going to leave at 30. Again, these are all settings that I have preset and I don't usually change. DPM, plus SD, Keras. A lot of people use Euler. I think more people use one of these two here. They tend to have a little more, add a little more granular detail. The Euler tends to be a little more of a painted effect. I would like some more realism in this. We're going to use the Illuminati Diffusion model like I usually do. Sometimes I do switch it up and I move over to the Dreamlike Photo Real if I really want something realistic, but the Illuminati does pretty good. We're going to add those negative prompts in there and go ahead and render that out. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, so we've got 4 renders here. I'm going to start with the first one here, bring it up. It's not bad. I didn't specify the type, ethnicity, or any kind of a description of the shaman, so I kind of let the AI decide what it wanted there. Some of these are pretty good. I actually really liked this one. It was pretty cool. I love the smoke effect. The fire looked really good. The general look of the shaman looks pretty decent, and I love that it's got stars in the sky and the mountains in the background. That one's probably the one I'm going to go with. The hands are in good shape. Positioning, the overall composition of this image is phenomenal. I love it. This one got a little strange. There's fire everywhere. I'm not sure what he's doing, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to go with that one. And yeah, this one's interesting too because you know, mountain's on fire too. So this guy, I don't think he's a shaman. I think he's a pyro. But you know, it is what it is. So yeah, I really like this one right here. I think it fits beautifully with what we're going to go through and do. So once I've decided on the image I want, couple things that I will do. If there's things in the image I want to fix, detail, or whatever, like there's fire down here. I don't necessarily need the fire down there. But I don't want to work with a low-res image like this. If I'm going to be doing any inpainting, I want it high res enough that I'm going to get the detail, and I'll show you how I remove those things. So what we're going to do is we're going to send it over to image. When it sends it over here, it includes the negative prompt. Honestly, I don't think I need all this when I'm working with doing some inpainting. So we're going to leave the neg mutation there because it'll handle most of the stuff we want. This is a textural inversion. If you don't know how to use textual inversions, go find. There's lots of YouTube videos out there on how to use them. They help out a lot in being able to get specific things done. Okay, so now that we are in the image to image, I want to upscale this. Now, Stable Diffusion does come with the SD upscale, which I've used quite a bit before. It's not bad. It's okay. But the extensions that I use the multi-diffusion, tiled diffusion, and tiled VAE to do this. And those extensions, if I'm not mistaken, are, let's see, where are they? Here, multi-diffusion upscale for automatic 1111. You'll want to get that. This does a much better job upscaling, especially when used in concert with the 4X Ultra Sharp. Now, I learned about this through another YouTube video. I don't remember who it was. Just look up upscaling technique, and you should be able to find it. But you can also get this. There's a wiki for upscalers, and if you look it up, you'll see the 4X Ultra Sharp, and you'll end up dropping that into, I think it's your ESR GAN. Look up the 4X Ultra Sharp. You'll find it. Once you get it in there, you'll be able to go through and do this. So, okay, first thing I do, we got the image here. Modify the negative prompt to be super basic and just something that's going to be effective. Okay, and if we're going to be doing some inpainting, I want to see at least 2 different variations of whatever it is I'm inpainting. Well, actually, sorry, I apologize. We're going to be upscaling. So let's go down to Tile Diffusion. We're going to take Restore Faces off. We don't need that going. We're going to enable this. Under Method, we'll leave that. We're going to enable the whole Tile Diffusion. And then down here, we're going to leave, well, we're going to change the upscaler to 4 times ultra sharp. And again, when I upscale, I don't use the defaults. I used to use the defaults, but I got too much tiling, checkerboarding, I guess, is a lot of people, especially when you're dealing with clouds, gradients, things like that. You tend to see it more often. So what I do is I increase this to 128 on the latent tile height and width, okay? And then on the latent tile overlap, I do increase this to 64, and that gets rid of it. And you know, a lot of it depends on the noise too. So I like, as part of adding the detail, I want to be able to do something between 0.4 and 0.5. I'm going to do 0.4 on this. I don't think we need to do any higher. When using this, it does a really good job of maintaining the overall image, person, whatever, but adding the intricate details. So it works really well that way. So 0.4 at this size. So I'm doing my initial upscaling. I want to add as much detail as possible. So we're going to do between 0.4 and 0.5. If I upscale again, I will drop it down to probably something like 0.2. Because you don't, that way you minimize any other tiling effect you might have. Checkerboarding. Okay, we're only going to upscale it twice. So we're going to minimize the tile diffusion. Now we're going to go to tiled VAE. We're going to enable that. We don't change anything with this. This is just part of the upscaling process. Don't ask me to explain it all. I just know that it works. Maybe there's somebody else out there who can explain this a little bit better in the details, but if you're just looking to get something done, get it working, just enable this. Enable the tile diffusion, make sure it's enabled, and 4 times ultra sharp, 128 height and width on the latent tile, and overlap is 64. Okay, we're going to minimize that. That is pretty much it for the settings for just doing the initial upscale. I do usually put this right back on SDE Cross. The DPM++, and then I'll just hit render. Now this process does take a little longer than a standard upscale, partially because we're doing it at 0.4, which the AI has a lot more, not freedom, but it's able to add more to the image. So we're going to let that run. I'm going to pause this for just a second while it does that. Okay, so it's finished upscaling. Now I'm going to point out a few things here. This is something that you do have to deal with when you're upscaling and you do the noise above 0.3. It will change aspects of the image. Now if you notice on this, it did change the stars. Now there's still stars there, which is awesome. You even get some clustering here, which is really cool. But it did add a lot of detail to the person, as you can see. But you may lose things. Like I really like the way the stars were set up before. I'm still loving it, don't get me wrong. I think it's going to work well for what we're doing. But now, just be aware that things will change when doing upscaling at that high of a denoise strength. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this to the Inpaint section. We're going to start touching some of this up so it looks a little bit nicer, so he doesn't have fire in front of him. I think that's really about the only thing I would modify on this. It's such a beautiful image. So what we're going to do, we're going to change the size of the pen. Now we're just going to come down here. Now we have to, one of the things we need to do is we have to modify the prompt. We could try rendering it as is to see if it gets rid of the fire. And here's a couple things you want to know. When doing inpainting, the more you put in of something else, it'll tend to take on the attributes of that. It's all based on nearest pixel, right? Or however you want to call it. But the other way to do it is to change the description. So we're going to leave everything there except we're going to do This, just call it small. What's going on here? Try that again here. Hit something on my keyboard and it did not like it. Okay, let's try that here. Come up here. Okay. Small rocks. We're also going to change the model. This is not an Inpainting model. You absolutely want an Inpainting model. There's a 512 model, the 768 model. There's also the 1.5 Inpainting model, which works really well. Don't get me wrong. I use the 768 model because I'm working with the different sizes. It allows me to add more detail. And when you do that, because we're going to be doing Inpainting, there's two different ways you can do this. There's lots of different ways. We're talking about, stable diffusion here. But you can either do whole picture or only masked. Now, the difference between those two is if you do whole picture, what it's going to do is you leave the resolution as is, and it's going to re-render the entire picture, but it's only going to change what's in the masked out area. The reason that I would do this is I may not want yet super fine intricate details in this specific area. If I did, I would choose only masked. I'll explain that here in a second. But by doing this, it's kind of taking into consideration the whole image, and then just adjusting this to fit the image or fit your description a little bit better. Now I'm going to explain this as I go, because this is one of those things that you kind of learn and get to know and understand how the AI works. So we're going to do two renders of this. We're going to make sure the tile diffusion is shut off, or else it's just not going to do anything, because we're in the Inpainting model. We want tile VAE and tile diffusion shut off, or else you're going to run into problems. Everything else, let's see, let's change this up. I want it to actually have some leeway with the type of rocks it's going to put in there, changing the image from what it is currently. I will leave, it's going to base the image off of the original content under the mask, or I could do fill, which will just wipe it out and it'll try generating something that fits the image and my description, but I want the original. And we're going to see if it gets rid of the fire using the whole picture Inpainting. Again, this is one of the reasons didn't like that. Let's see, that's because we're trying to do two variations at 2336 by 1312, and so it does not like that. So we're going to drop it down to one version and try it again. My card should be able to handle this. Let's see what it does. So yeah, it's going to move through it, and it's time's cutting down. But as you can see, you can already see that what it's done is it's gotten rid of the fire so far, and it's creating a highlighted area as if it was lit up by the fire. But maybe, and we'll see how when it gets done rendering here. Now it looks like there's still going to be fire there. Yeah, so we're going to stop that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show you another technique. So that's doing it that with the whole image. I'm going to switch over to only masked, but we're going to change this down to 768 by 768. The reason I'm doing this is when you change this size here, it's not actually changing the size of the whole image. It's not going to scale it or resize it or anything. When you're on only masked, what this does is it takes a 768 by 768 pixel chunk surrounding the area you have masked, and it's going to re-render that section at that resolution. Now, again, there's another technique to this, so I'm going to try this first, see what it comes out to, and if it still doesn't give me what I want, I'm going to up this just a little bit more on the denoise strength, give it a little more freedom to figure that out. If it doesn't, I'm going to show you something you can do, which works really well. So we're getting some interesting, as you can see, it's putting in really small rocks here. That's not what I wanted. and it did this weird thing with his toga, whatever you want to call it, his clothing. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna change this up a little bit. We're gonna take this mask out. We're just gonna mask out just the fire over to here. We're going to up this quite a bit, but then we're going to I'm going to do something that I learned a little while ago. It's like, think of it this way. It's like doing the whole picture, but what you're doing is you're gauging how much of the image is going to be utilized in that whole picture painting. Instead of the whole picture, what I'm going to do, I'll explain as I go. I'm just going to click up here into the dark forest area up here. Okay. What that's going to force it to do is create this 768 by 768 area right here around the masked areas, even though it's including him. But what it's going to do is it's going to render the stuff I've masked at a lower resolution, which means that the details should be a little more match a little bit more what I want based on what's around it. You can click all the way out in the corner, and based on that, it actually helps in getting rid of things you don't want, that you're having a hard time getting rid of. Like if you know, when you're using the original mask content, sometimes you have a hard time getting rid of what's underneath it. And you don't necessarily want to do fill, because then you get something completely random. So I want an original, but I want to try and change this. So I'm putting this up here, which forces the AI to not focus so much on that, adding so much detail to that, but try to match more of the picture itself. And it's something you'll have to experiment with, play around with, but we should get something that is a little more what I want. Yeah, that was a little bit better. So as you can see, I added some rocks. They look like they're kind of in the foreground, but that's what I'm telling you is because I clicked up here, what it's rendering down here is a lot more low res, a lot. Oh my gosh, losing my words, I'm tired. There's less resolution, less detail, but we can, now that we've got that there, this gives us a lot more flexibility in working with it now that the fire's gone. So we're going to get rid of the mask. It doesn't show up, but it's still there. We're going to get rid of all that mask. We're going to make sure the mask blur is turned up a little bit. This helps blend the edges and make it not look like it's inpainted. And we're going to go like this. We're just going to go out and around. And let's say gray. Try to match a little more what's in the image there, and this time I'm going to just click a little ways away over here on that, so that it's a smaller area, so it'll be able to add more detail. But we got to remember to change this too to 768 by 768 here, or else it's gonna have problems with that. It's like rendering the initial image at the larger resolution. It'll just give you squirrely stuff. Much nicer. As you can see, it re-rendered the rocks, giving more detail, fitting the style quite a bit more. Looks great. I love that. So using the Inpainting, doing the only masked, and then gauging the size of the render area by clicking out away from it will give you the ability to kind of scale, downscale and upscale the amount of detail in the primary mask area. Again, this is just something that took a while to figure out. Maybe other people have figured out the same thing. In my brain, it's just something I do naturally. So now we got an image that I really like. And what I am going to do is add more detail in his face, maybe even his jewelry and whatnot. We're going to see if we can't add some more detail to that a little bit here. So we're going to send that to Inpainting. Get rid of the existing masks, and then we'll work on his face. I want to make the mask as close to the size of his face as possible. And I want to get the beard and everything else going on there with just his face. Okay, and what we're going to do, we're going to do only mask again, but we are not going to do anything out around the edge. We want to only do that. We want the full detail of this guy's face, and we're going to do 1024 by 1024. I want to add as much detail as possible in this. And we're going to lower this down. That way it maintains the same structure, but it's just going to add some more granular detail to it. So it's not going to render two faces, two heads, or other weirdness. At least we hope not. Okay, so we're going to leave the steps the same, everything else the same. We could, at this point, increase the 2, but I'm going to leave it at 1. Yeah, I think everything else is great. And this will help maintain, because we're doing only masked, it still maintains the same image size of 22 whatever by 1300. So we get to keep that full image size. And then we'll generate. Oh, you know what? Nope, sorry, we do have to change one other thing. We are going to go get the original description. And the reason why is because we're going to be working with a face. So I want to know that it's working with the old shaman face. Come on. There we go. Okay, now we're going to render. You can already see that it's adding a lot of detail. He's looking up into the sky. His face is highlighted by the fire. Yeah, absolutely beautiful, the amount of detail that you get in there. And that'll really help when we do the next upscale, the 4 times hyper detail. We'll just dive into that and add a lot of detail to it. We are dealing with something that has the painted look. It's like an oil painting, and so you got some stylization on the fire, which is really cool. I think we're going to add some detail to the I think the headdress and the jewelry too. So we're going to go through that process here as well. So we're going to send that over. We like the face. And let's go ahead and mask out the headdress. We're going to leave, I think we're going to bring the detail or the denoise strength down a little bit. You notice I didn't use restore faces when doing that. I didn't think it was necessary in this point. It had built the structure originally really well. The only thing I would have worried about would have been the eyes, but the eyes look like they're lit up properly, structured properly, and both facing the right direction. And it's because we lower the detail down again on this, we don't need to worry about change to the description, I don't think, so we're going to hit generate on that again. Oh, I did forget. Excuse me. Change the resolution again. It's something you have to do every time when doing the only masked Inpainting, or else it just takes forever to render it and you're not going to get the same kind of results that you would want. I was wondering why it was taking so long to get started there. There we go. As you can see, it added some detail, made it a little more ethereal. There's some feathering on parts of it. Overall, definitely looks really nice. We could probably change it a little bit. I like how it kind of fades up here, but it's almost like it's fading into the mountainside. I'm going to bring this up and just want to see what it does when we go to 0.5 on the denoise strength. There we go. I think that's better. It's actually adding a little bit of color into the headdress as well. You get some almost like some night purples in there, which definitely adds a little more depth to it, giving the whole image a little more color. All right, let's work on the jewelry. Let's send this over to Inpaint. Get rid of the mask. We're going to mask out just the jewelry. Okay, and again, change this to 7. Let's do 1024 by 1024. I think we can leave the denoise the same. It's just going to add more detail. We'll see how it looks. Hit render on that. I think what it's going to do is make things a little more logical, add some more depth to it, some more detail. Yeah, so he's got some, like a metal plate here. He's got some, I don't know, tassels and what looks like a little flame inside of a pendant or something like that right there. That's pretty cool looking. Outside of that, I don't think I would do anything else to change this image. The wood has a great texture to it. There's some stylization going on with this. Overall, it's got a very beautiful feel to it. A very, what was the word I used for it? A mystical feel. So next we're going to go ahead and upscale again. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to send it over to the image to image again. And we are going to leave it on that. This time though, we're going to take it down to 0.3 on the denoise strength. Then go to tile diffusion. We're going to enable that. Should be the same. All the settings should be the same. We haven't refreshed the page or anything, so we got 128, 128, 64 on the tile overlap, and then the 4x ultra sharp. Okay. Then we're going to enable the tiled VAE, and that should be it. Double check everything. Hate rendering something only to find out I got to change something later. I think that's good. So we're going to go ahead and generate on that. Give it a minute to get started here, and I'll probably pause the video until it gets done. But I just want to make sure it gets going here. It does take quite a bit longer to get going because we're dealing with upscaling a much larger image, and the way this upscaler works in adding the detail, it's a lot different than the extras upscaler. You hear the video card fan kicking in as it starts to do its thing. We can pull up the console here and kind of see what it's doing here. Multi-diffusion sampling's going. It's got to go up to 720. Initiated the overall one right here. And we should, in just a minute here, see the progress bar come up. Sometimes it's fun to watch. I'm an IT guy. I live for the progress bar. As weird as that is, I don't know, I get some sort of weird sense of satisfaction out of watching a progress bar. Maybe that's why I do this. It gives me unlimited progress bars. Anyway, I'll pause it. So it's still rendering. I just wanted to kind of show you this. It's going to take it several minutes to do this particular upscale, but as you notice, it is keeping the overall structure of everything. It's a little blurred out right now because it's just showing the progress, in kind of the closest estimate of the image. But what we're going to end up seeing here is a lot more detail in the mountains. The clouds should see some more detail with the smoke a little bit. Wood texture, rock textures. Even his clothing will probably have more texture to it. That's one of the beauties of, and you notice there's no checkerboarding. Okay, due to the fact that we increase the tile size and the overlay, we pretty much eliminate that. When you're dealing with larger upscaling like this, moving from this one was 2336 by 1312, it's going to be 4672 by 2624. When you get into those higher resolutions, when you're trying to upscale, that's when you start seeing that checkerboarding, and it sucks. Once you start seeing, you're like, crap. Sometimes it gets rid of it. By the time it finishes, it's like all done, and the checkerboarding is gone. But most of the time, you do end up with some sort of residual checkerboarding artifact. And so by making those simple changes under the tile diffusion with the latent tile width and height, you're pretty much able to eliminate that altogether. Okay, so it's done upscaling. Let's take a look at it here. So what I love about this is that you can see it maintained excuse me, the overall effect or theme of the image. You notice how the fire is more painted and drawn, not realistic. I didn't want it realistic, and it's kind of nice that it did that. And even when I inpainted the face, and it kind of made it look very real, and then when we upscaled it, it gave it that painted look. but very well organized. It's very well done. Mustache and beard are detailed enough you can see what they are. It has the intricacies in it. The mountains in the background definitely have more detail. A couple things I'm going to point out here that something to be aware of when you're doing your videos, or your images, is when you have tall things like this breaking up and dividing the image. The AI has an interesting way of doing that. So like you got this man here, he's kind of breaking up the hill as it comes across here. And thankfully on the other side, it comes close enough to not really be completely weird. Sometimes the mountain may come down and actually attach right here, but this mountain comes up and attaches up here. Over here, there's an effect of this too. You can see the mountain kind of comes up here, but your brain just kind of assumes, oh, well, it comes down right there. So the effect is not that great. You can see it here too. But there are other images that I've done where whatever's on the opposite side of whatever divides the picture is almost completely different than the rest of the image, and it's really bizarre. So now that this image is done, it's got a great style to it. We got rid of the fire on the rocks, so you get the fire is isolated. You even get some cinders and coals down in here, which is really good. That's a really nice effect. The rock in the background, shadows of the trees, the forest. You can see there's a forest back there. This whole thing has such a beautiful, a mystical effect. That I think this is gonna end up being one of my favorites. I love the stars in the background. You almost have what looks like the Seven Sisters up here, the Pleiades constellation right there, which is really cool. You get some of these little spots here, which you could attribute to maybe the AI is just interpreting those stars, but maybe they are cinders from the fire. Who knows? I feel a little bit like Bob Ross right now. Anyway, so that's kind of that stuff. Now this image now is 4672 by 2624. Pretty sizable image, and if I wanted to make this something that I would print, I would take it over to extras and do one final upscale, check it out, make sure that it didn't ruin it. So I'd send to extras. Actually, the first thing I would do, this particular image I'm not going to save to my favorites. I mean the extras one I would, but this one I would. I'd save that into my extras folder, or my images folder, my favorites folder I should say, not extras. And then I would go over to send it over to extras, and I don't want to quadruple it. We're just going to double it. I don't think we need to go above 8K on anything, but we are going to use the ultra sharp 4x ultra sharp on both these. I don't change anything else. That's all I do, and then just hit generate. This does take a little bit longer than the standard extras upscale because it's upscaling an image that's already 4K. So we'll let that go through here. Check it out once before the video is done. Okay, it's done doing the final upscale, so let's take a look at it here. Okay, yeah, it didn't change too much. I'm sure if I were to zoom in, you'd end up getting a little bit of loss on, let's switch back over to here. Yeah, you can tell there might have been a little bit of detail loss in the intricacies here. Switch back over here. The extras upscaler has this tendency to destroy some of the minor details. I mean, it's barely, in an image this size, it's barely noticeable. That's just something you got to be careful about. If you really have a piece you're working on that you really like, and you want to get that, excuse me, that 8K or whatever size, yeah, you can definitely tell there was some detail loss in some of that. Again, you might not notice, but if it might be worth it to spend the time to send it to image, lower the detail down, the denoise strength down to like 0.5, and double it one more time. That way you get your 8K, you don't lose any of your details. It might actually add a few little extra details. This is okay though. I'm pretty happy with this. Definitely gives it that illustrated look, and I would definitely take that out, put it up on my openart.ai portfolio, and it looks great. So yeah, anyway, I appreciate everybody who's listened. I hope this helped, showing my process on this and my workflow, the things I use. I know it was a little long-winded. Hope I didn't bore too many of you. But it's great. If you have questions on something else you might want to see, I'll try to make a list of the different little nuances and techniques that I figured out. But if there's something specific, would love to make another video, so just let me know. Talk to you later.